Broadcasting from the Cass Corridor in Detroit, this is The Metro, a slice of news, culture, and conversation. I'm Robin Vincent.
And I'm Tia Graham. Today on the program, is it fascism or old-fashioned conservatism?
It's shock and awe for some, but for others, Trump's recent moves on immigration, education, and the federal workforce have been welcome.
Plus, how have the tipped wage and sick leave laws recently changed in Michigan? We'll tell you what you need to know.
But first, losing a job is hard. It can make you question your self-worth. It can strain relationships, upend plans for the future, and make it hard to pay bills and get by. Thriving becomes surviving. A lot of federal workers could now be confronting some of these predicaments. That's because from the National Park Service to FEMA, thousands of people have been laid off as part of the Trump administration's efforts to, quote, make agencies more efficient. Under the leadership of Elon Musk, the Department of Government Efficiency is slashing jobs across more than a dozen agencies, including the Department of Veterans Affairs.
And Robin, that means 10-year Marine Corps veteran Andrew Lennox is now without a job. Lennox was working as an administrative officer in the primary care department at the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs in Ann Arbor. He joins us now. Andrew, welcome to the Metro.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. And before we get into what happened with your job at the Department of Veteran Affairs, could we talk about your time in the U.S. Marine Corps? What drew you to become a Marine?
Honestly, it was, again, my family's gotten so much from this country, and I feel like it's only right that we should give something back. And, you know, it was after college, I was traveling and teaching in the Middle East and seeing like what was happening there during the Arab Spring. It kind of made me want to stop being an observer and kind of, you know, what's happening in history and then be a participant in it. So I quit my job teaching at a nonprofit, came back to Michigan and enlisted in the Marine Corps as an infantryman.
Wow. Andrew, before we continue to move on, can you talk about that, the importance of being in service to those around you, not just, to the country, of course, but being in service to those, especially when you saw the impacts that were happening in other places and spaces. Talk about how that changed you.
Yeah, honestly, it gave me a great appreciation for what we have here. Again, there are a lot of things that can be improved in our country and our government and everything, but seeing like the fragility of democracy happening overseas and, for example, the thing that really struck with me, it sounds kind of boring, but was like building codes, right? During the Egyptian Revolution, when there was nobody inspecting buildings, these like unauthorized high-rise apartment buildings just started going up left and right. And one down the street from me collapsed and like several families were killed in it. And I was like, wow, I never realized how important like these government structures that you need like building codes, inspections. It seems like a pain here if you want to put in a fence in your backyard, but like these are things that we kind of take for granted that, keep us safe, and it's unique to the United States.
And as you're speaking about that, of course, we're going to have a conversation about all of the jobs that are impacted right now due to federal administration things that are happening right now. So I'm thinking about what you're talking about, and I want you to expand on that just a little bit about the things that we take for granted in terms of regulations and the things that are happening around us. I mean, a lot of us don't think about what it takes to keep us safe.
Yeah, it's the people that are keeping us safe, whether it's our water, our air, to make sure that veterans aren't being taken advantage of by like predatory online universities. And again, like our parks, like people that just want to maintain these resources that we have that are, they spend, their entire time in, college up their eyeballs in student loans most of the time to make a job that's not paying a lot because they genuinely care about this country and these people, and everything that we have. And it's things that like, again, once it's gone, you don't really realize how important it is. And that's like, as the building codes. And that's what I saw. And then as I'm seeing and hearing more of these federal employees that are they're being terminated too. I know the word layoff is being used all the time, but this is a straight up termination. People are being fired for performance because if you were laid off, there's proper protections and policies involved in it. But every single person across the board has gotten the same copy and pasted email that says, due to your performance, you've not demonstrated that further employment would be in the interest of the agency. and that's kind of, it's extremely dishonest, and it's, again, a slap in the face to all these federal workers across the board, whatever agency or department. Majority of them, most of them, everybody I've met were either too new to get a performance evaluation, or they were a probationary employee because they'd just been promoted.
And Andrew, I'm sorry to step in, but could you talk about your personal experience as well? What was it like to see an email or communication saying that, you know what, I don't think that your job is, or your performance or your job is important right now to the government?
If it was my boss in the hospital that said it, I'd believe him 100%. I'd say, you understand my performance and I trust your judgment. And same thing if it was the director of my hospital or the director of our region or VISN, for the area. If they told me that, yeah, but instead it was somebody from Washington, D.C. who had never spoken to me. Had to Google who she was, as I got this. And I was like, cool, so this is disingenuous and this is arbitrary and this is not on performance. This is across-the-board termination.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, I don't trust much that they say if they're using the same excuse for 11,000 people.
Thank you so much, Andrew. And you're listening to the Metro on WDET, Detroit Public Radio. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Robin Vincent. We're speaking with U.S. Marine Corps veteran Andrew Lennox. He's one of thousands of federal workers who was recently fired as part of what President Trump and Elon Musk have described as a plan to make the government more efficient. Andrew, I wonder if we could talk about your job at the Veterans Affairs healthcare system in Ann Arbor, when you were hired and what you were doing for the VA exactly.
Yeah, so I was officially hired. My first day of work was December 16th. Like, I'm a new guy. There's no getting around that. But it's a 6-month process usually, to get into the federal government, and even longer if you work in a position that requires like a security clearance and an in-depth background check. And my job in primary care as an administrative officer was all the behind-the-scenes administrative work that it took to support hundreds of doctors and the thousands of patients that we treated. And it was, managing our program specialists, and what that, again, it's all the nitty-gritty stuff that nobody really wants to do, making sure all of our hours are accurate, making sure we don't overpay people, making sure our doctors have the proper credentials and are certified so they're able to prescribe medication. They're within compliance to order, procure, and maintain our equipment and supplies, as well, from latex gloves to tens of thousands of dollars of imaging equipment. It's to really just take all of the red tape and the friction off of our care providers, whether it be doctors, nurses, social workers, anybody in our department, and so they can do their job and focus on the veterans.
What did you like most about the work?
I just love being surrounded by veterans. Like, it's that's my family. Those are my people. It's not just the veterans, because the people that work at the VA, a lot of them are veterans. The other half have family members that were veterans, and it's a unique group of people that come together for a common mission. It's not a bottom line. We're not beholden to shareholders. We're beholden to those people that signed a contract to put their life on the line for our freedoms, our country, and it's the absolute least we can do is give them the best care possible, and that's what we do at the Ann Arbor VA.
So it sounds like working for the Ann Arbor VA allowed you in some shape or form to continue your service to the country.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I look at, all the veterans and everything they've done before us, the World War II veterans, Korea, Vietnam, the global terror or global war on terror guys that came before I was in, like, everything I've gotten, these institutions that gave me so much as far as leadership, mentorship, and the good things that we were able to do overseas. Like, I owe it to every single one of those veterans that comes to that hospital. Just saying, like, thank you for what you did before, and thank you for, the world and the military and the country that you provided for me today. So the least I can do is, make sure we don't waste as much money as possible to get them the best possible care. And yeah, it's an honor. Like, again, it's my family, though. It's not something you do for thanks. It's something you do because it's the right thing to do.
And so your colleagues, who I'm sure also felt then like family, who were fired, what are some of them doing now? Can you speak to what life is like for them right now?
It's a lot of uncertainty for everybody, especially for people that were like the sole income of their family. Because, again, this wasn't a layoff. This wasn't something where, we got a message from HR that walked us through, when our next paycheck would be, or the continuation of benefits, or what, future work in the government would look like. It was an email sent at 7:30 in the evening. It said, turn in your laptop and any government equipment you have tomorrow. And so now they're scrambling. They're like, can I get my job back? I don't know. There's an appeals process, but that's going to be flooded with applications. There's legal channels, but again, they have time on the other side of this equation. We don't have time. People's bank accounts are draining. We have families to support. We don't have the time or the luxury of time, money that people need to fight this legally. And that's a bummer. People are scared and they're terrified.
How did you feel when you got that email? You said at 7:30 at night.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was going through your mind?
Initially, I laughed because it's the dark humor of the military. Like, oh, wow. All right, I'm fired. It's really happened. And then, again, as I'm reading, I was like, my performance? Are you really? And, again, check in with colleagues. Yep, I got the same thing. My colleague who had recently been promoted, that worked their way up from a secretarial role all the way to a supervisor, a spouse of a disabled veteran. They have families. I was like, you got the same email? And like, yes. I was like, you were just promoted. Yeah. So the insincerity is what really, and now it's anger. I'm angry because they lied to all of these people who have done nothing but give their heart and soul to this country and these agencies. And they just copy and pasted it. And they're labeling everybody poor performers. And now that's the defense of anybody that's, celebrating these cuts. They're like, hey, I've never heard of a low performer actually saying they're low performers, and then they giggle and walk away. It's like, no, these are highly competent and capable employees that were lumped in one giant group. And because of that, we did not treat them with the dignity that we would somebody we'd be, letting go in a reduction in force.
So it adds insult to injury here. You would have preferred at least for some transparent language instead of attacking something that for veterans is very close to their mission and to the work that they've done, and that's integrity and performance, right?
Yeah, 100%. You spend 10 years, defending the ideas of America as, truth, justice, fairness. And then I'm literally emailed a lie. I was like, wow, okay, what was all that for then? If we're just gonna we lose all credibility if we aren't acting honestly, especially to our federal employees. Our government is held to a higher standard, and that standard has disappeared now. And it's a shame. It's the worst thing because we have an amazing country. It's not perfect, but again, it doesn't have to be perfect to be worth defending. And that's the beautiful thing about it. And what we want to do is maintain the integrity of our country and these institutions, and that's gone out the window right now.
Andrew, some people are saying that we need to cut waste, that we need to reduce government spending, and that the VA is a place where that should happen. What do you say to people who believe that we need to shrink government and that they like what the Trump administration has been doing?
Yeah, and that's a very fair point and fair opinion on that. It is a government. Like I said, nothing is perfect. There are definitely ways that we can make every agency more efficient. But I would say, again, I don't know which part of the art of the deal it says to fire people across the board without consulting their supervisors or giving them enough time to do a proper transfer of authority to make sure that the agency has all the information of what they were currently working on so somebody can finish it tomorrow. Because it's just, yeah, we can fix it, and we can, but we should probably consult the people on the ground. We should probably consult the supervisors that are running that service. They're like, hey, if I fire this guy tonight, are we going to be good tomorrow? They didn't ask that. And that's what irritates me too, is jumping the chain of command. They didn't ask my supervisor, and that's a man that my job is to support him and our agency, and the fact that they didn't give him that respect or anybody, the director of our hospital. Obviously, efficiency is not your priority if you're not including the stakeholders on the ground of what you're trying to do.
Did you vote for President Trump in the last election?
I'll tell you this: I try to remain as apolitical as possible in this, but I'll tell you, I disagree with a lot of John McCain's politics, all right? But I do not respect anybody that would denigrate his service as a prisoner of war. And I think if somebody does, it's a big indication of their character and what they truly value.
Before we let you go, and I think you've talked about this a little bit, but I'd like to give you the chance to distill it for our listeners one last time. Why did you decide to speak out about getting fired from the VA healthcare system?
This is what I was trained to do. This is what our service members do. We defend people who can't defend themselves. We do everything in our power to just make sure that truth and justice is out there. Again, it's the military. There's a lot of flaws in it, but there is a fundamental value that we all support, and that's truth and honesty. And if there are people, because there are people that are terrified to speak up, rightfully so, they could be terminated. They're afraid they're going to email, but somebody has to acknowledge that what is happening is wrong and it's dishonest and it's hurting people. It's hurting our employees and it's hurting our veterans. And it's tearing down these institutions that we've worked so hard to build and makes our country great. So, because I have to. That's why I have to.
U.S. Marine Corps veteran Andrew Lennox, thank you so much for sharing your story with us here on the Metro.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
From the WDET newsroom, Governor Gretchen Whitmer says almost 700,000 Michigan residents have medical bills they can't pay. She's expected to ask lawmakers to work with her to reduce or eliminate that debt during her State of the State speech tonight. Whitmer's office says the state had previously secured about $4.5 million to fight medical debt, and Wayne and Oakland counties have their own medical debt relief efforts.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer will hold her State of the State address tonight, and you can hear that live on WDET at 7 p.m. We'll dig into the highlights on tomorrow's show.
Up next, court-ordered minimum wage and sick leave laws were set to take effect Friday, but state lawmakers struck a deal changing the laws again. We'll learn more. We'll be right back on the Metro. Stay right there.